Hello and welcome to Up the Villa podcast. If you are new to our channel, subscribe. You'll help it grow massively. We're on the road to 6,000 subscribers. Drop this video a like and get involved in the comment section like you do on every single episode. So we've got our best gear on. We've got a great guest with us today, Pete. I think it's his third time on the channel now. So pleasure to have you on your channel. He's just doing bits as always. And you know, your knowledge of Villa in the game is top quality. And it was fascinating to hear what you had to say after the Newcastle debacle. Am I over it? Probably not. I'm not over it at the minute. It's just been thinking about it every single day of what went wrong. But yeah, just really frustrated. We'll go straight to you then, Pete. You know, what did you make of it then?
Well, first of all, cheers, lads. Thanks for having me back on. What was eerie about this game is, I don't know about you, it sure reminded me an awful lot of the away loss at Southampton that ultimately did Dean Smith in, didn't it? I mean, they allowed a first half goal. Yes, it was earlier in that game. And then they were completely impotent in terms of trying to get that goal back. And that ultimately did Dean Smith in. Hard to believe that's 13 games ago only and 3 months. And so you've had now the chance for the Gerrard bounce to occur. That's come and gone. He's added two pretty decent players into the squad, and then two squad players. You can make the argument that Callum Chambers may be more than that in time. But I felt like we were right back to that period. And if that's the case, then the questions start to have to be asked about the squad as opposed to the manager or the system and just the character in the squad. And one of the things I'm still unclear about is who is the leader on this team. And the two longest tenured players are Tyrone Mings and John McGinn. And I think you can argue as spine players, they are the leaders, but they are nowhere near what Steven Gerrard used to be. And that's the problem, is I don't think anybody can reach that standard of what Steven Gerrard wants. And when he was sunk into his seat in the late stages, I'm just wondering if that's one of the things that was crossing his mind. Who do I have out there that can take this game by the scruff of the neck? Because McGinn was trying to do that. He was going after Ollie Watkins all game for not holding the ball up. And you remember in the second half, he plays that square ball infield and Watkins just let it go by, almost throwing his teammate under the bus. And that's not where you make you don't make a dummy in that part of the field. And this is where I feel something's not right within that group. And the evidence is now starting to support that, because that game looked so much like games that were 13 plus games ago earlier in the season.
You're spot on. And Justin, on our match reaction, we said exactly the same thing, didn't we? We said that there was characteristics from matches under Dean Smith. Ryan, me and you were at Southampton away, and I was in the car park before I did my fan reaction, and the two fans in the car park said to me that was no different to Southampton away. And I think you're right, Pete. I think there's something that goes on with these group of players for whatever reason, that they revert back to type, and I'm not sure why. And they did throw Dino under the bus because we had a decent thing going and it all collapsed and it all caved in, and they weren't playing for Dino. We've had 6 or 7 really good games with Gerrard that we've all seen the system working well. It's been really good to watch. You know, we've all been buzzing about it. We've, as fans, have had to get used to the system because it's something that we've not watched before, and we're having to learn how we're playing and what we're doing, and we're fascinated in the way that we're going. But you know, and I think when you were saying about Gerrard slumped in his seat, I think he was thinking exactly the same thing what every single Villa fan was thinking. What is going on? Like, you know, he's not telling these players to go out and play like they did on Sunday. You know, he's got them well drilled, but for whatever reason, that's the level of performance that they're putting. And you know, it's just not good enough, was it? And it's really frustrating. And I think the only thing we can do is make some serious changes to the squad. And there's one thing that's been, this one image has been in my head from the minute I was at the game. I'm going to share the screen with you now. So everyone on the screen, let me know what you make of this, because this was in the 13th minute of the match, right? So we know how the system's working. We know that the fullbacks push forward. So we've got a fullback here, Luca Dean, and we've got Matty Cash here. Now, when these fullbacks go forward, our two central midfielders, either side of Douglas Luiz, will tuck in and cover this space through here. Now, what I find absolutely shocking is, if I move you guys over, is this massive gap here, and these four Newcastle players here. There's no press, there's no shape, there's no midfielders within 5 yards of these here. We've got our two number 10s right next to Ollie Watkins here. Someone explain to me what is going on with the shape of this team here.
I think this is the way that it's played in Scotland, and I think what's happening is it's a different level in Scotland, isn't it? With all due respect to their league, and I'm sure they did get caught out playing this way, but they probably didn't get punished as much because they were probably 3 or 4-0 up at the time. So it doesn't get as highlighted as much, I don't think. But even 6-7 games ago, and I was sitting up in the stands in the Trinity Road at Villa Park, the amount of times I saw John McGinn receiving the ball in the right back slot, trying to play either a long diagonal or something up the line, or trying to feed the ball into the centre midfield slot where he should be. And then it breaks down, and because they're all out of position, they're getting these overloads in the middle of the park, and it's putting such strain then on the centre halves to constantly cover that I think the highlighted mistakes that the centre halves are making, could it be that they're just under that much pressure from the formation and the system that they're almost in a no-win situation now, that they're having to sort of put fires out everywhere? I mean, I actually took that picture on Saturday because I paused the telly and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was gobsmacked that we're then relying on our centre midfielders to tuck in at fullback. So I do think going forward, I do wonder whether Steven Gerrard will have a look at the system and the formation, and he'll have to maybe tweak it a little bit for the Premier League. I think that is something that I think that's a definite possibility. We might see a little bit of a change in it over the next few weeks, or they might tinker with it, or maybe even change formation. I don't know. I'd be interested to see what you guys think.
I mean, the first thing I think there, guys, sorry to interrupt, is, how long has this club needed a defined number 6 for that very reason? And Marvelous Nakamba was great, in the time that he was there. I still think he's limited on the distribution front. He always plays the safe, easy ball, and that's fine, keeps them in possession. But in a situation like that, I'd still not fancy him over, say, a more rugged tackling type number 6, because that's exactly what that illustrates there. And we've also said numerous times that the front three, they're supposed to be narrow. That's how he wants to play out of possession. But once you bypass those three, then this happens. And when they're in possession, they're too narrow. And there's too many players in a close proximity where you can't distribute the ball. And by the way, is it Steven Gerrard that makes the decision, or is he to turn and say to Michael Beale, what do I do here? Because Michael Beale is the guy. He was the guy during the break that was yelling at Ollie Watkins, Ollie, you got to hold the ball up. You're not holding the ball up here. We need you to hold the ball up. Everything's bouncing away from you. He was giving the instruction there, and he is the brains behind this whole thing. And Steven Gerrard's not afraid of saying it. Gerrard might be the leader on the sideline and the big presence and the charismatic ex-pro, but it's Beale who does the work on the training ground and who does all the tactical preparations and work. And so, he's the guy who's going to have to figure some of that stuff out.
Ryan, John,
I don't think it's too much the system. I don't mind the system. I'm starting to think it's the personnel that can't execute it. For me, when you had that still up there, I think Douglas Luiz and what Marvelous Nakamba was doing was deeper. And when we was out of possession, they were sitting in a back three. And then McGinn and Ramsey was in the middle. You got 4 Newcastle players there. You should have the 2 number 10s back putting some pressure on. You should have the 2 number 8s there. That's your 4. And then you push the ball wide where we want them. And then we press them. It's just not happening. And that number 6 role that Nakamba was doing beautifully, he'd sit in that just in front of Tyrone Mings and say Chambers. And if they do bypass it, then bang, he's at him. And he was great at that. He was so switched on, and he'd win that ball and lay it off, and off we go and attack. But we are causing our own downfall by not controlling games. We want to be attacking. We want to play in the other team's half. But what was it, 136 misplaced passes or something like that? We cannot. I don't care what type of team you want to be. You cannot afford that many misplaced passes. You're just going to put yourself under immense pressure the whole game. Yes, we need that number 6 that can break it up, but we also need players that are going to be brave on the ball. And I get the frustration with Ollie not holding it up, because if he holds it up, it brings everybody else into play, and he's got to be that focal point. I think you said it, Luke. I think we need like a Benteke, like a prime Benteke up there, like someone with pace and power and can hold it up, because Ings technically is a great player, intelligent, he makes great runs. He just hasn't got the running power for how Gerrard wants to play. Now, Ollie's got that running power, but he's not a natural goal scorer. He's not a natural finisher. So we do need someone up there that can hold that ball up. And I think that this personnel, it's failing his system a bit. And I think that's where we're going wrong. But as for Ollie Watkins, just... Did you see the tweets on Twitter? Someone had DM'd him, giving him a load of abuse, and it's just not. I didn't watch the game Sunday. I hate missing a Villa game, but I think this one, it was a bit of a blessing that I didn't watch it. But seeing the fallout on Twitter and following it, and it's just not on. You know, you can criticise a player's performances, yes, but you don't need to get into their DMs and give them abuse. You know, Ollie Watkins is surrounded by professionals that will tell him he's not good enough, and it's not, you've got to be doing better, you've got to hold that ball. He knows exactly, so you don't need to be getting into his DMs and giving him abuse. That helps nobody at all.
No. So it's going to have been a big week at Bodymore Heath this week. You know, and I guess they will be looking at the system and tweaking it and getting into a few players. So we've got Watford at home on Saturday. Watford are massively struggling. Roy Hodgson is now the manager. They haven't won in... Justin, how many haven't they won in?
I think they've won 2 in 20 and they haven't won in 12.
And up steps Aston Villa. So, anyway, right. There's got to be big changes, haven't there? And Gerrard alluded to after the game. So, let's try and be a bit positive now and move on to Watford then. So, Pete, what are you expecting to see?
When the manager comes out and says there's going to be changes, is he going to then back down and realize, geez, maybe changing the continuity of this match right now in this moment against this opponent, maybe that's not such a good idea, but he's called it now. So that's one interesting dynamic. He's committed. But my question is who? I thought, Ryan, you said a great thing there about Danny Ings and the difference between he and Watkins. I mean, you're giving up one thing to get another. And so, okay, you put Danny Ings in, and it's ironic that Ings was about to come in when Ollie Watkins scored the offside goal, and then he sat back down again, and then, he's back up again. All right, so he starts maybe. Morgan Sanson has been bombed off so many times. I just don't know how he could come in and affect change when he's just not been trusted. And that's through 2 managers now. So, does he come in, and who's he come in for? Ramsey? No, Ramsey still provides us with the most two-way midfielder we have, a player who can identify the third man runs, the late runs. And that's why I think tinkering with this right now, I think the big question for me is, does Ezri Konsa come back straight away? Because apart from the one, leaving your leg in, I thought Callum Chambers was one of our more consistent players. And granted, he hadn't played as much as everybody else, but that's my problem with all this, is who are you changing from and to? We don't really have that big a squad, and that's my fear. And my prediction is that Watford will come in with now Sarr back in and Dennis back in, and they're going to have their best game of the season, because they know, the team across from them is having a bit of a wobble at the moment. They got nothing to lose. What do they have to lose under Roy Hodgson?
Yeah, exactly. I'm a bit stumped here now, because I don't really know. I don't even know
I've got a solution.
Go on then.
Right. Listening to what Ryan was saying a bit ago about the midfield, I totally agree with what he's saying. And I think what I mean by the tweak of the way he wants to play is, I think the 8s have got to stay more central. So for them to stay more central and stop them having to cover full-back run getting forward, the only way to do that, and the way we used to do it when I was a kid, you'd play 3 at the back, but I don't think he'll go to 3 at the back, which is why I think, for me, that squad is crying out for a defensive midfielder that can also drop in and play as a third centre-half. So the bloke that can do that is Chambers, isn't it? Because that's where he can play in both of them positions. Constance, I think, still suspended. He's got a 2-match ban, hasn't he? So Courtney House comes in at centre-half next to Mings. Chambers sits in the defensive midfield role with a job to do of sitting back into and making a back three when your fullbacks go forward, instead of relying on your 2-8s to come out and cover that, which keeps the midfield stronger. I would actually leave John McGinn out. I agree with what Pete says. I think he said it now, so it's got to happen. And for me, 4 of the players that are underperforming are Cash, McGinn, Louise and Watkins. So I'd replace all 4 of them. I'd play Ashley Young as a right wing back, if you like, because he can play there. He's good going forward. He's got a great delivery into the box. With Chambers dropping into the back 3, I think it allows him a little bit more freedom to get up and down. Obviously, the 2-8s can also do that bit of covering. Sanson would come in for McGinn for me and get him a chance there. Keep Ramsey, and I agree with Pete says you can't drop Ramsey, and Danny Ings gets a run up top simply because it's his turn. Watkins has had a run. He hasn't done it. You've got to play on the bench who's a quality forward. He gets his chance. Watkins has to sit and watch him. And if Ings doesn't do it in 3 or 4 games, Watkins will get his chance again. That's just how football is. And the 2 10 stay in the team. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Ryan, what do you feel like Gerard's thinking at the minute?
Fucking hell. What have I got? I got some work to do in the summer. Nah. Well, like Pete said, he's made that statement now, and he's got to back it up, and it will send a big statement to the rest of the squad, won't it? That if you don't perform, you're getting bombed out. You will get bombed out of that 11. Where under Dino, it was sort of the same 11 there or thereabouts, wasn't it? So, be interesting lineup come Saturday, but. I'm rattled, man. I am rattled. Like, this game's got me a bit nervous, man. Just to, you said 12 games without a win. They've gone 4 games without a goal. And who do you want next? You want Aston Villa, don't you? The Robin Hood of the Premier League. We'll sort you out. We'll sort you. We always seem to let these teams off the hook when they're on runs like this. And Villa Park, I just feel like it's going to be a nervous ground. I feel like the atmosphere is going to be a bit muted, a bit moody. And it's going to be up to them players just to lift that atmosphere. We said before the Newcastle game, we've got to have that desire. We've got to want it more. And if Watford want it more, they will get something out of this game. So we have really, we always seem to perform better after half time when we've gone in and had a rollicking. These rollickings need to come from the off. And I don't know how many times on this podcast we've said from the off, we want to see Villa bang at it. We repeat ourselves so many times, and it never happens, does it? So something has got to change, really, because I'm looking at...
Do we all remember the first game of the season as well?
Yeah,
exactly. They had their most
one
possession.
thing, Ryan, one thing I'd touch on about Gerard and these rollickings is I was in the toilet at half time, right, at Newcastle, and I heard a load of fans saying, right, Gerard now, he's going to give him the air dry. He's going to get stuck into him now half time, because when we have a shit half, we come out and we better. How many times does he have to do that now, right? Do you think it starts to become repetitive and fall on deaf ears? Because that's the vibe I get with this squad. It's no matter how many times you say stuff, they always get used to it. And that's what I was saying at the start about Dino. And I don't know whether they're just starting to just not listen. That's what I think, because
it seems to be a person. It does seem to point back to the personnel now, the personnel of the squad, the personality of the squad, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's frustrating.
I think it comes down to professional pride now, doesn't it? Because there's not a lot to play for this season now. We're not going to get Europe, I don't think, and we're not going to get relegated. So it's up to these players to go out and be professional and put the best performances in now. Whether some of them looking over the shoulders, thinking I'm gone in the summer, so I'm not going, I'm not that bothered. I don't know. I'd like to think that's not the case. I'd like to think they go out every week and they just try the hardest to win each game. But you do have to start questioning it, to be honest.
You think about the difference between, Smith and Gerard is Smith used to put his arm around players and say, what's the matter? What's happening at home? What's going on? Dad's here. He loves you. And, that was the way he went about it. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that's for a certain echelon of club. And I'm saying it's from 10th in the Premier League to about 20th in the Championship. That'll keep you consolidated in the league you're in, or, move you up the table. Steven Gerrard is not like that at all. He's ruthless. And that's the reputation he brought in. That's the reputation he had as a player. And by the way, if I can suggest a fantastic series for you and your viewers to watch, it's the Diego Simeone special on Prime. I see a lot of similarities between those two. They're both animals, and they've always been that way. They're ruthless guys, and they want and expect their teams to be ruthless. And look at Atletico. I mean, they have done really well. And if I had a fantasy, it was that Aston Villa would be the Premier League's version of Atletico one day, a team that was really hard to beat because they gave 110% every single week. That's all we ask for, but we don't see it at all. Just consistency from one half to the next has been difficult, never mind game to game. And Simeone, I'm telling you, you'll love this series and you'll go, I see some hallmarks there. Yes, he jumped around, whereas Gerrard played at one club his whole life, but you'll see what I mean when you watch it. It's very, very cool. And by the way, he also says, you don't have to be friends on this team. We don't all need to stand around a campfire and sing Kumbaya. You don't have to love each other. You have to hold each other accountable and play your socks off for each other. And that's all that matters right now. And when I see these little, things between McGinn and Watkins, and, earlier this year at Arsenal, it was between McGinn and Mings. And I just wonder if some of the players it's starting to wear on their nerves a little bit. And that's where leadership comes in.
Yeah, I think.
Well, famously, the Man United treble winning team, I think it was Teddy Sheringham and Andy Cole hated each other, never spoke to each other off the pitch, yet they were absolutely phenomenal on the pitch. I do wonder how much of a shockwave was sent through the squad in this last window when Matt Targett was dispensed with as well, brutally as not brutally, but it was like better players available. You're coming in, see you later, you're gone. Because he was a well liked, pretty much play week in, week out player, and that was it, gone. You're out the squad, you're gone. So I wonder whether some of the other ones that have sort of thought their positions and place within the squad and the team were pretty comfortable are thinking, oh dear, that happens now with this manager. We haven't got Dino anymore.
Something else crossed my mind, and I'm trying really hard not to be, negative here, but I look around and like Big Tim, he's on the bench. You've got Tommy O'Reilly, who they've been talking up quite a bit as, a player who's trying to break into the squad and has done well in training. And I almost wonder, the players that they sent out on loan, Archer, Philogene, Badace, Kane, Kessler, Hayden, are they trying to protect those players as their blue chip, high potential prospects from this group? Like, that thought crossed my mind. I'm like, yes, they need to play, and they need to play men's football. The championship's the perfect place. And by the way, they've all done really well, which is a good thing for the future. But if things aren't right, and if the leadership's not right, and the attitude isn't right, do you want them in that environment? Again, I'm trying desperately. I'm just throwing out theories, but it did cross my mind over the weekend.
Yeah, to be fair, I think you're right. I think when you are struggling a little bit, you do get bogged down in a not being negative. We just seem saying and talking about what we've seen on the pitch, and there has been a stark contrast from Gerrard's first couple of games to what we saw the other night against Newcastle, and it's just got to get better, hasn't it? And we've got to perform at home against Watford. There's no two ways about it. There's got to be a massive reaction anyway. So the performance has got to be a lot better. And like what Pete was saying, we've got to start seeing a bit of desire and hunger and passion and the fundamentals in which you want to see anyway in a footballer, and even in a team. So it's back to the drawing board, I think, this week. So we will end it here, and we won't do any score predictions because so I don't know what's going to happen. So let's just leave the predictions for this one. So thank you all for watching, and we'll be back for our predicted lineup episode. That should be out on Friday as well. So Pete, thank you for coming on. We love your channel, and every Villa fan does as well. So thank you, and up the Villa.
Oh, up the Villa.